Hello again and welcome back to my new area in Camel Studios. As always guys, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more creative stuff in Planet Coaster and also in the future in different games like City Skylines or Anno, which is coming out somewhere in winter, and every different theme park related game. So in today's episode we are going to tweak the coaster a bit more, but then again we are going into one more building of our retro-futuristic area. This little tweak with the coaster is basically for one reason, and this is I haven't had a good spot for like the mid-course brake run, and I had to do that on my own. Again, obviously I have to do this on my own all the time, but I had to go back to the coaster and add a little brake run in the middle of the course, which actually made the whole coaster a bit more let's say less interesting, because it loses a bit too much speed, so I completely disabled the brakes, which kind of takes away the reason behind the mid-course brake run, and makes it only kind of a mid-course tracking point whatsoever. I don't even know if that's even done in the real world, but for now it just, you know, it does the job. It makes me, or puts me into the position to run two trains at the same time, and still, if you would have to stop the train in this spot, it would still make the course afterwards pretty easily. So it does work as a mid-course brake run, even though it doesn't break down the train at all. But hey, I mean, that was the better solution. Otherwise I should have, you know, I needed to have gone for a higher lift hill, which would have made the first element bigger and would have made the mid-course brake run higher, and, you know, it would have destroyed the whole skyline I was going for so far. So I decided only to make this kind of mid-course brake run a little bit redundant, but also more usable by just disabling the brake function in general. But anyways, that's about the coaster. We are going to kind of continue today the buildings in this area. So as you can see, I am taking this building over here to kind of fill in the roof pieces a bit more to really make this whole thing connected. One thing though I'm not quite happy about is I love this corner building, to be honest. I really love this. This first building really brings together everything I was imagining about this area. The only thing I don't really like is how it is blocked away by the monorail. It's actually not the monorail. The monorail is not the biggest issue. It's more like the street course, which is on top of it. And I don't know. I really, maybe I'm going to reposition this this whole thing a bit. Like, it's a bit hard. I tried it already, but the problem is that the supports of it, they already found their nice spot in between. So I wanted to make this all very tight and narrow, to have a lot of layers really above each other. So if you go back to the retro-futurism idea, you can really see like cities that are built really on top of each other. You have different layers for like trains and flying cars and like zeppelins and kind of airplanes, and then again flying cars. So it's always playing a lot with this kind of layer system, and this is what I wanted to kind of resemble in this little area, which I said could be our center point of the movie, which is where everything is filmed. So in the end, I think that this could be the best explanation of why this looks like how it looks like, but still it does block away the damn building, which I don't really like, because the building looks nice. So I really have to find some ways to kind of make the view a bit more open to this building, which I really don't know how exactly to do this, because shortening the track above doesn't make no sense, because if you imagine you film this from a certain angle, it has to be big enough to kind of run out of the image and out of the overall composition, to make sure that it looks like it would really actually be a real track. So yeah, that's the idea about this one. So I can't really shorten that any longer, because then you wouldn't have the building inside the scene, which is actually not good at all. So yeah, never mind. But I just want to go a little more into what I'm doing right now. So after I've been building like the basic layout of this area, I wanted now to go into the tunnel for this little street, which is on the second layer actually. I don't really know if that would be a kart track, or if this could even be like for motorcycles, or if this could be for like another kind of public transport, which is not much more defined than just stating it is a public transport. Maybe it's in kind of spheres that drive around, like gyrospheres, or maybe it's something kind of, which is inspired by having like self-driving cars or whatsoever. It could be anything like that. So I have this layer actually as kind of the more like the personal kind of traffic for like really for people, like a people mover or something. For the old Disney fans, they know what I'm talking about. So the person mover, is it? No, it's a people mover, right? Anyways, and you can really see like I'm going to bring in this little wall, which I think after a few iterations I came up with a really nice style of a retro-futurism look. I already was doing also off-screen some different variants of it with a lot more glass and a bit more roundish, but it just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. But now it really looks like, it actually even looks like a train, right? It even looks like a train that is passing by. So you can really imagine either way it is a train, which is just going by and it's really long and you can also see just the outside of a train, or it's just pretty much a tunnel, which I'm fine with either case. So both cases are fine because it's not really defined, right? It's just futuristic, retro-futuristic, let's put it that way. And I feel like this is really cool. And playing again with what's also funny about, like, if you go and Google for retro-futurism of the 60s or AtomPunk, you have like the overall style is predefined by like the color schemes and the materials used and kind of a Bauhaus style inspired building style, but at the same time there's like the big influence of nature. And as I said in the last episode, it's all about nature, like about trees and plants and stuff, but also about the organic layout. So there is a big fight between very clear lines, everything in parallel, just playing with a lot of edges, a lot of concrete tied together in big blocks, kind of blocky, right? And at the same time you have very organic designs where you have a lot of rounded shapes, very like even oval looking buildings that play a lot with circular and oval kind of elements that make the whole thing look organic. Somehow this all works pretty much like perfectly well together, and this is also what I wanted to bring in to a certain extent. Like I am generally going a bit more for the blocky style because it's just simply easier in the game, to be completely honest with you. But also with the small building, which is on the left hand side, I tried to get in with this kind of organic idea, and the organic idea pretty much is also resembled and shown in our 60s fair pavilion on the opposite side of this little park, because that will be a park in the end, where we'll also have like a little seating area, and we have some canopies and just little coffee going on, which then could be used for different movies, so like kind of go more into the vintage style in general. But yeah, talking about vintage is, I think, a good point, because in the first episode I mentioned already that I wanted to go for a different style which hasn't been seen that much, but I found this to be very interesting because it put me into the position to think about what really vintage is. Like vintage is kind of like a trend word. It's kind of like an overused word for, like I even heard people saying, if you have something old which nobody likes, call it vintage and it gets a trend. So, that's basically how vintage works, right? There's no definition about vintage. It's kind of something old made appealing and attractive again by the fact that it's being old, which is weird, but it works, right? So just wear some old clothes and call them vintage, and you're good to go, literally. So it's funny actually. What is vintage, right? So kind of taking this retro-futurism approach and bringing that into a theme park and making kind of a retro sci-fi area, which then is very cool for the people to go there, and also for young people that just grew up with a completely different approach on sci-fi. This is made cool again, right? But if you go back to the 60s, it wouldn't be particularly really cool because it was basically sci-fi, right? Obviously, yeah, for people who liked sci-fi, that was cool, but it was not cool in the way of because it's retro or vintage, and now it is somehow vintage because it's something old made new, called vintage made sexy, I guess. So that was really, I think that's pretty funny, because you can basically also use this as a vintage park. So I really think that I can set myself apart from everything else which is done at the moment, which is always, it's always going back to kind of the pleasure pier kind of 50s, 60s theme park-ish idea about funfair and a bit more like simple buildings and all this kind of stuff. So this is what comes to our mind thinking of vintage. And I mean, obviously the set we got really forces you nearly to use that kind of idea about vintage, because it just gives you so many different pieces that really perfectly tie into doing this kind of stuff, right? You have all the new roof pieces, obviously the vintage looking vending machines and all these kind of things. Really, they just perfectly work together with this kind of style. But as you guys know me, and I guess also for the new ones who've been not that long with me, but still they should know already, like, I'm always trying to push the limits, like always trying to go for something else to just test out if that's going to work. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love all the other projects. I don't want to take away any of the greatness that people are delivering with the set by any means. So for example, the series of Masked Bandit with his little pleasure pier, which he's never ever going to finish in 5 episodes. Masked, you're not doing this. I tell you, you won't be. Anyways, I love it. But it's just, for me, if I would have started with that before everybody else had, for me personally, that would be fine, because I challenge myself. But now, as I see how they approach that, it takes away a bit of the excitement for me. I know what is possible, and that it is possible, so there's not that big of a challenge for me any longer to go for it as well. Like, it will pretty much look the same. Same goes pretty much for Yonti, because I mean, that's pretty obvious that he's going to revamp his own little park, which actually was already done in this kind of theme. That's just purely nature, just kind of, you know, it's obvious. It's not nature, it's just like obvious, and obviously the best call. And I just love to see how his area evolves now, with all the new pieces. And I'm always happy for him, because like, he will also save a lot of FPS by changing a few things. Hopefully he does. But yeah, I just love his little park. It's just so great, which is actually not that little. And I just saw an overview picture he shared lately in a group. It's actually not that small. It's a good footprint in the meantime. But anyhow, yeah, it's just very, very cool. But yeah, back to my project. I wanted to go for something completely different. Just to have this in my park. To kind of give you all a little bit of variation in what you see. And I hope that you guys do like this. So now I want you to post down one thing in the comments down below, because as I said, I try to come up with a question now in each and every episode. Last episode I forgot though, but I try to give you some questions to answer, because that makes it easier for you to comment, and it makes it more interesting for me, because I love to answer to all your comments. But now, as you have had seen, or if let me just recover for a second. As you have seen now the first 2 episodes, you know what kind of style I'm going for. And I do want to know, what kind of feelings do you, and what kind of memories do you have with this theme? I mean, a lot of you guys are too young to really have this experience. I mean, me myself, I haven't been alive in the 60s, so I'm in the same position basically. I have to look back and see what it is. But are you a big fan of it? Have you been a fan of this kind of style before? Is it the first time you get in touch with it, or kind of have you learned about this right now? So what do you add, or what do you feel about the kind of 60s retro-futurism? How do you connect with that? So that would be really interesting for me to know. So drop down a comment down below if you knew it, and what you knew already about it, if you haven't known about this, and if it is more interesting for you right now, if you have searched for it, or do you want to know more about this, and have you even seen some movies basically from the time back then, and if so, which movies? So a lot of things, what's going on there. So that would be cool if you drop that down below in the comments. But for now, that's already it for the end of this episode. I'm gonna put you down a screenshot at the end of this episode, and that should be it, guys. Let me just get you a quick note. For the next couple of days, again, there won't be too many videos because this should be out on Sunday. So on Monday is my last kind of power master thesis writing. Hopefully tomorrow I am finished with that damn thing, and by finished I mean completely finished. I'm giving this to the printer then. And afterwards I'm going to go do so much more stuff for YouTube again because I really want to. But I think this will pay off earliest at the weekend, so expect this week to have none videos at all. But yeah, so since that's it, and you see a beautiful screenshot hopefully right now, it's time for me to wrap this up for this episode. And it's also time for me, and I'm going to use this little spot in here, to say thank you. Because recently, I just sat down, I just played the game, and I thought, like, we are talking so much about subscribers and how many people are having subscribed, how many views, and don't get that, and you know, Planko is kind of dead in terms of views and growing so much, and games here and there, and I can't deny that this is really also interesting for me to look at. But at the end of the day, I am one of the most luckiest persons on this planet to have the possibility to share my weird passion in a way with a lot of people out there. And by a lot of people, we are talking about more than 12,000 people. Full stop. I don't need to compare anything. 12,000 people sharing this passion is incredible. And I just wanted to thank you. Thank you guys for watching my videos. Thank you guys for participating in the comments. And thank you guys just for being here and sharing this passion. Thank you for not laughing or just like making yourself fun of people doing this kind of stuff, because it's still weird for me to sit now in front of my computer and just record that for people who are actually not here. But the whole thing changed. 2 years ago I made this the first time and I was like, what the hell am I doing here? And I got so much confidence about this. Like, you know, back then if people was about to ask me what you're doing in your free time, I was like, yeah, this and gaming and yeah, and I would have never ever said I'm doing YouTube. Now I really love to talk about that. People ask me, and obviously most of the people around me already know. They know my channel, most of them have subscribed to it. Even people from the early school days, if I meet them, they kind of with a little smile on their faces, they're like, you doing YouTube, right? And I was like, yeah, I do. It's still weird, but I have confidence, right? If people don't like it, they don't like it, it's fine, but I love it. And I think every now and then you have to just sit down and say thanks to you guys out there. Because it's like it's nothing. If I just do those videos on my own, it's potentially also fun, but there's no reason for people to watch it in general. But you do, and you share it with me, which makes me a lot of times really thankful. Actually, it does make me thankful all the time, but there's not always the time that you can appreciate that much, because it's, yeah, you just, you know, you look at numbers and then the video just gets a few hundred views and you're like, yeah, but it has been better back then. But no, it's like 500 views is also great. Like it's good. And I just need to say thanks to you guys out there. I've said this a few times, but now again, thank you. You personally, you in front of the monitor, in front of your smartphone, in front of your TV, in front of your tablet. I don't know where you're sitting, but you, exactly you. Thank you for being here. And for being such a cool guy, or girl, or woman, or man, or husband, or wife, or whatever. You are great, and I feel like I have to say this right now, just out of nowhere. And maybe I'm doing this in half a year again, but it's just like, thanks. I can't really say much more about that. But anyways, let me just wrap this up right now, because it's enough of motivation speech right now. Actually, I'm motivating myself to go down now into my basement room and start writing my master thesis. No, I'm just kidding. I will do that tomorrow morning. Okay, let me stop that right now. We are going into a wrong direction. Guys, if you appreciate that video, make sure to leave a like. And also, if you haven't subscribed, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. I do appreciate that. For now, I would say have a great evening, guys. Enjoy your day, or morning. I don't know when you're watching this. Enjoy your day, and see you hopefully in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.
We should be hiding out wherever we may find.